you're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landis. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get eatfluenced. Welcome back, everyone, to the Eatfluencer Podcast. I'm Maggie, your host here, and I'm so glad you are back for episode 57. We're talking about orthorexia today, and I have a guest you are going to love. But before I get into that, let me just make you aware that my Facebook group is waiting for you. I have a free Facebook group for women. We are dealing with these diet culture issues that you hear about on the podcast every day, in real life, in real time, and it is November. We are cranking up for the end of the year onslaught of confrontation with diet culture about all the limitations you need to have around holiday foods, about all the resolutions about your body and how you're inadequate and you need to change on January 1st. We are going to help you navigate that really, really confrontational and difficult landscape better than you ever have had the capacity to do before in a non-diet way that supports your health. So if you are interested in the conversation that's going on there, please let me know. Either drop me a message on any of my social media platforms or send me an email, hello@maggielandismd.com. I'll get you an invitation to the Facebook group, and I really look forward to seeing you there. So today we are talking about orthorexia. And many of you may be like, what's orthorexia? It sounds like anorexia, but I've never heard of it. Well, yes, it's kind of an eating disorder-ish. It's, in my mind, an eating disorder, although it is not technically at this moment a qualified diagnostic criteria-based eating disorder in the DSM-5, which is the manual for psychiatric and mental health conditions. So it's eating disorder-esque. But I will tell you what, though, I believe it will eventually become a full-on eating disorder. But that's really just a nuance. It is a problem. It is a problem that a lot of, particularly women and some men too, don't even realize that they have, because there's this really slippery continuum from kind of watching out for your health to a little bit of dieting to pretty rigid dieting to disordered eating to orthorexia, that sort of leads into or can lead into full-on eating disorders. And we have a guest today. Jen Amato is going to help us unpack some of this, both personally and professionally. She deals with orthorexia all the time. She's a certified intuitive eating counselor and a health coach who does private eat coaching in a HAES-aligned anti-diet lens. But she has had her own history of struggling with orthorexia and has overcome that and likes to use that lived experience also to help her clients. And she's got her own podcast, which I highly recommend you listen to. It's called Health, Life, and More for Women. I was actually recently featured on it too. I have to look back to see what the episode number was. But she is fantastic. And above and beyond that, she's got 4 daughters. So the motivation to get the relationship with our body and with food straight is magnified that many more times when we have a daughter or daughters, as Jen has 4 of them, wanting them to grow up feeling confident about their health and their body without this total toxic, cloud of diet culture following them through their adult lives, as many of us have had. So, our conversation today, you'll learn a little bit about what orthorexia is, how you could identify the orthorectic behaviors in yourself or in other people you care about. And Jen's just got some good all around advice. I hope you enjoy the guest episode today with Jennifer Amato.
Well, hi, Jen. I'm so glad you're here today on the Eatfluencer podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Maggie. I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you today.
Well, me too. And we were just saying before we started recording, like, I feel like I know you, even though we've never met in real life.
I know. Isn't that the way it always is? I feel like, yes, I get to see you face to face as, we're hanging out here recording for your podcast, but I feel like I do know you.
Right. Well, this is a tight community. The people doing this non-diet or anti-diet work, we got to kind of stick together, right? There's only,
oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah. It's like I wish it wasn't so much of a secret society. We're trying to make it not feel that way, but it sometimes does. So
that's really true. That's really true. And I think that's actually probably one of my favorite differences between diet culture and this community is that we support each other, we encourage each other, we show up for each other, where diets are like really isolating and you don't feel that same level of support. So I'm really honored to even be part of a community that loves on each other as much as they love on the people they help.
Right. Well, and I feel the same way. And I think a lot of that may stem from the fact that, we are on a joint mission. We all have different backgrounds and we all sort of approach it a little differently. But, diet culture is about competition and sales and products. And it's probably a lot more challenging to feel collegial with your, quote, competitors. But see, we don't have competitors because I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling you a shake or an app or something.
Thank goodness, Maggie. Thanks goodness.
And next we have, no, I'm just kidding. Well, let's get into this. So that being said, this non-diet approach to nutrition and health, as we're sort of commenting on, is not the mainstream narrative, at least not yet. So I'm curious how you got to be here in this space.
Yeah. I always think about my journey, and it's kind of one of those, which maybe is common, very winding, twisting roads to get here. I was a chronic dieter to the extreme, and that actually led me to become a certified health coach. So when I have to pick out,
that's fascinating. You know what? And I think that's a common background that I hear from people that are in the nutrition space, is that's what got them in it in the first place, right?
Yeah. I mean, so my degree is in psychology. I've always been fascinated with people and our thoughts and our brain. And I thought, oh, this is a great way to go, get certified as a health coach, because now I'm, seeing these results. I'm doing all these things for my body, and I love the brain. I love our thoughts. So I pursued this certification. Well, something happened within that pursuit. I started struggling a lot with myself, because I was hitting that point where it's never enough. I can't seem to lose enough. I can't seem to do enough. I'm not going to be enough. My body's not small enough. And I'm learning this information that is, I'm going to just say it is pseudo intuitive eating, because they focus on weight loss. But I was so intrigued about the approach for habits, like, okay, healthy habits. Okay, I can kind of get this. So simultaneously pursuing this certification, working with clients, and struggling in my brain nonstop, because I'm like, something doesn't feel right. I don't feel right. I'm not okay. And I started doing some digging on some of these habits, and I come across this amazing book called Intuitive Eating. And I'm like, this sounds familiar, but not. So I read it. So I was like, I'm going to read this. And my brain just about exploded. Mm-hmm. I felt for the first time that there was something beyond what I knew, which was dieting, which was, for me, it was excessive working out. It was just restriction. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're telling me there's another way to live. So I started going even deeper. I'm like, all right, I'm going to look this hashtag. I mean, talk about the world we live in. I'm going to go look these things up. I'm starting to find food freedom. I'm like, what is food freedom? I mean, I'm doing this reading. And again, I can't contain what's going on inside of me. I can't hold on to these thoughts of, oh, I should be restricting. So I start doing what I called at the time cheating, to try to practice intuitive eating. And it was so
you were
clear.
cheating on your diet with intuitive eating is what you're saying.
That's which is comical. I know I'm laughing now, but at the time it didn't feel funny. It felt like this pull, like I was polar opposites. It did not sit well with me. And I can't remember the day, I can't remember the time, Maggie, but I can tell you, I can remember distinctly going, this doesn't work this way. It does not work to have both of these lined up together. And it took even, I would say, a good year after that moment when I said, I'm done dieting and I want to pursue all the knowledge I can about intuitive eating. And here I am, actually decided to go as far as I could with it, worked with one of the authors, worked with Evelyn, who is an amazing human being, and was certified as an intuitive eating counselor, which I had read the book. I thought I knew everything there was to know until you actually even do the deeper work. And again, I'm like, wait a minute, my brain already exploded once. How many more times can I go through this aha moment? Right.
Mm-hmm. But well, and I mean, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch that wrote the book. And the thing that blows my mind is that, they wrote that book in the 90s.
I know.
And to think as sort of fringe as you and I sometimes feel right now, like what that must have been like for them doing this groundwork and really being the pioneers in a lot of ways. We're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they probably met a lot of resistance from the sort of traditionally trained dietitians and the weight-centric teaching, which even today now is still the normative model. Yeah, that's crazy. So let me ask you this question. So while you're kind of going through this transformation yourself and sort of switching gears to intuitive eating, are you taking care of clients as a coach, like during this transitional phase, or how are you teaching people?
I almost feel like you want to be like, how the heck are you doing this, Jen?
Well, I know, because I can feel when you describe it, I can feel that sort of discordant, like unsettling sort of mental space when you have these two conflicting thoughts and you're trying to figure out what to actually do.
Yeah.
How did you handle that with, continuing to teach other people?
So, I'm grateful for the ability to discern the difference between, weight loss goals and healthy habit goals. And I really only focused on healthy habit goals, even though, of course, the goal of all of my clients was the end result was weight loss. They wanted weight loss. So what I said was, I want to keep this as a healthy habits, because again, I'd already had that small aha, that one step forward going, all right, let's focus on this, but you can still have these results. And that's where I was coming from. So what happened was I noticed all of my clients were getting results. Okay. That word results that had nothing to do with their weight. And they were so happy. They were like, yeah, the scale hasn't changed, but I feel this way. I went out shopping. I enjoyed this. I was able to do that. And that's actually part of what fed into, wait a minute, there's something here. And I don't want to set weight loss goals. I actually struggled from the beginning with, who am I to tell you how much weight you need to lose? Like that just was a big struggle anyway. So of course, keeping that focus with healthy habits became this evolution to none of the weight matters at all. And actually it was disrupting when I had those few clients who would come in and became their focus, actually gave me the proof that it disrupts any habits that focus on your overall well-being, your overall health.
Right. Well, yeah, that's interesting because it's, it is just such a distraction. I mean, it's such a distraction. And that's what I talk about all the time. And, my specialty is in sort of clinical health and medicine. And that's how I feel about the scale. Even there is, it's just derails
like the actual conversation that we should be having. You know,
Mhm.
I'm all for health. I know you're all for health, but let's not get confused what we're talking about here.
Yes, yes. And I think that's why part of the main focus of the work I do now is redefining health. I believe that has to be something you are empowered to do for yourself. And that does look and should look different for every human being. You know, we all have different needs. Our bodies all have different needs, you know, what we're going through during whatever season that is. So I want you to define what health is for you, not me. It's not my job. And that's a big difference where, you know, I
Yeah,
was constructing still, you know, within that health
sure.
coaching was constructing what health was. And that's actually disempowering to another individual.
Right. It takes the autonomy out of it. And
Yeah.
it also is different, not only as you mentioned, from individual to individual, it's different even for one individual over time.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to let, even for ourselves, what might have been a health goal when we were 25 years old may not be a health goal when we're 45 years old or 65 years old, you know, and we have to be realistic about that. So,
Yeah.
okay, here's where I want to go with this, because orthorexia. All right. This is a word some people have never heard of. Some
Mhm.
people listening to this are like, what orexia? Like, is that anorexia with an O? What does this mean?
Yeah.
You are sort of, in my mind, an expert in this. And I'd like to hear, like, first of all, like a high level for somebody who has no idea what that word is. How would you sort of describe orthorexia, or what is the, the characteristics?
Yeah. So, first, I'll say very simply, it is obsessive behaviors and habits with health. And I wish everyone could see the air quotes of the word health, you know, which are, it's
Right.
very muddied, but it really becomes a fixation and obsession with these healthy habits, these healthy behaviors, these healthy um, actions that you're taking. So, some examples would be like compulsively checking ingredients, nutrition labels, where you're not going to even consume a food without knowing exactly what's in it, how those macro and micronutrients break down. You are very in tune with what you're cutting out. So you are very restrictive on what you like allow in your diet. You have very narrow food groups, very narrow amount of foods. For example, mine was chicken and spinach, chicken and spinach, chicken and spinach.
So you
You're
identify, just to be clear, you identify as having orthorexia in your previous, like,
Yes. Yes.
personal
That
pursuits, right?
whole time of pursuing health coaching was working actually with someone doing macro counting, and it led to the obsession with everything. It was excessive workouts, hours a day planning. I mean, Maggie, I couldn't go to bed without knowing what I was eating the next day. So I was
In like
using,
granular detail, not just like,
oh,
I'm the mom who's like, okay, tomorrow we're gonna have pork chops because that's what I defrosted. Like, not like that. We're not talking about that. We're
no.
talking about like
It,
excruciating detail.
yes, everything was weighed, measured, and tracked.
Uh-huh.
Every single thing that went into my mouth was. Now, I know others because I work a lot with women in this space that, you know, there's varying degrees. And here's the thing, you know, I know we talked about, Maggie, there's not a formal diagnosis for this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the kicker. There are some things, you know, that highlight it. This obsessive fixations, even the excessive working out, the constant focus on, again, everything you're eating, everything you're doing, everything you're thinking. And it was to the point of I couldn't eat without knowing it. I couldn't finish my day without, you know, closing rings on an Apple Watch. I couldn't um I
Yeah.
couldn't think about anything else, including
Right.
friendships, including I mean anything without considering food. Um I was exhausted and believed that was good. See, I'm working so hard. All the things that
It's
ended up,
valorous, right?
oh,
It's
and you get praised. Okay, so here's the part of this that got me so, I believe, that just fed into my
right.
orthorexia was the constant praise for shrinking my body, for the way I was eating, for how much or how little I was eating.
And the W word, the willpower. You've got so much willpower. Jen.
Oh yes. I had all the willpower. I mean, I napped every day because I couldn't function. I was upset with everyone because I was freaking hungry a lot. I mean, I was hungry all the time, even though I was eating all the time, I was hungry. And I think about that now. And I think about that hunger. It wasn't because I couldn't eat certain foods. I wasn't allowing myself. It was, I was hungry for life. I was not living. I was getting up. I was working out. I was drinking excessive amounts of water. I was working out again. I was planning all my food, tracking all my food. I think about hours of the day.
It was like a full-time job.
Oh, it was. It absolutely was. I mean, that's a great way to put it, Maggie. I mean, it took every ounce of energy to do all of that. I had little for anything else.
Right. So now orthorexia, you mentioned this, but it's not in, so the DSM-5 is their kind of criteria for mental health disorders as diagnostic criteria. So it's not a categorized eating disorder in the way that anorexia nervosa or bulimia or something. Is that correct? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, it is not. It is not. It doesn't have that, you must meet this criteria, though I think we're seeing a shift in that, but there are some warning signs. There are some symptoms, and there's some easy ways to see some consequences, some that I shared here that kind of can point to that.
Right. Well, and part of I'm assuming part of the problem in categorizing this as a unique disorder is that there's this really big spectrum from, totally non-diet approach to eating to sort of mindful to kind of restrictive to dieting to pretty rigid dieting to disordered eating to orthorexia to anorexia to, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Where like it's so orthorexia in my view is like, it's kind of in this area where it's like, okay, well, it's not bad that you work out. It's not bad that you prefer, whatever organic food or you prefer vegetables or whatever it is like, but what is the piece that makes this very distinctive from just, a sort of quote average person who just is eating sort of healthy?
Yeah. So I would always go to intent. What is the intent behind what you're doing? Behind those workouts, behind what you're choosing to eat. First of all, that would be number one. And the intent when you are struggling in that orthorexia space with that obsessive is to shrink your body, is to manipulate your weight, is to have control over every aspect of your health. So intent is the first place I would look at.
Well, and that control, I want you to elaborate on that because I think that to me is a major piece is that, if you're just trying to eat more vegetables and exercise your body, and then guess what? Today it kind of everything went off the rails and your kid was sick and you had to work late and it doesn't happen. It's like not a big deal, right? But the loss of control when anything falls out of step, I imagine is like that major like psychological piece to the orthorexia. It's not actually that missing that workout or not knowing what's in that food is that big a deal. It is that loss of control, right?
Yeah, and let's just be clear, it's perceived control. It's
actually, right. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even control, right? And I can see that now. At the time, I didn't. I would do anything to retain what I believed was control. Maggie, there was a time I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning to be able to fit in a workout, and just thinking about what I was doing to my body.
Right. Yeah. It's punishing.
It was it's very punishing. And again, I felt though I was in control when in fact, everything external was controlling me. Everything external, all the food, all the workouts, because it was the intent behind it was I need to shrink my body. I need to be smaller and I need to be quote, again, there's my air quotes. They're so prevalent.
My fingers are so tired of doing air quotes. I've been doing air quotes for like 3 years.
I know, right? But it was all in the name of health. And that's where it gets so gray, Maggie, because it's all things that look on the outside to be healthy habits, healthy behavior. Oh, great. You are, moving your body daily. You're eating all of these, micronutrients. You're getting in great amounts of protein, like all these things. You have all this good stuff going on, but internally, you're not okay.
It feels
Internally.
different. Yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah.
and there's no end point. You mentioned that earlier in this conversation, but it's never enough. Like there's
Never.
not, you don't, that's a distinguishing feature too, is that you don't like get to some goal and you're like, okay, that's good. I can loosen up. I'm there. Like this, you are just, it's never like you can always double down and do more. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, that was the beginning of my breaking point as well. Acknowledging, I had this number in my head. I got to that number. First of all, I'm like, but I don't look the way I think I should. This isn't enough. And then, of course, you have to up the ante. You have to go deeper and harder. And that's when, I completely broke because my body could not take it anymore. And then I'm very grateful to this day. I will always be grateful for my oldest daughter, who looked at me one day and said, you take naps every day. That's weird, Mom. It shook me to my core.
Now, interesting. Now, how old was she when she made this observation? Was she like a teenager?
I think she was more, maybe preteen to teen. Yeah. Somewhere in that age where she noticed that.
So what were you thinking? Like when that shook you, what was going through your head? That you're not just like, well, yeah, I take naps because I'm tired. I got up at 3:30 in the morning to work out. What the heck do you think I'm going to be doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much where my brain went. And then I heard myself say that in my own thought and went, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like, what example am I showing my daughters? And again, I can't pinpoint the exact thing that completely turned that, but I will say her noticing the naps, noticing that I wasn't, my energetic self. I'm a very bubbly, energetic person, Maggie, and I was not. I really had to start doing some work on what am I doing to myself and what example am I setting for the 4 daughters that I have.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. 4 daughters. Wow. You've got to break this. You don't want them to have to live through this. This diet culture and this mindset, all, like you said, all the time wasted, all the energy that could have been diverted to something else productive. And I don't identify with having orthorexia, although now that I hear more and more about it, I'm sure there was a period of time I could have probably met whatever loose criteria we have here. It's when you're on the outside, you can see how totally consuming it is. But when you're doing it, it seems normal. And like you said, it's fueled by people congratulating you, praising you, looking up to you, asking for advice. And there's this kind of compulsion to then do more and do more. And it just is, you can't not think about it. I mean, is that really the point it's at, where you can't even function without thinking about how this was going to affect your body or your nutrition or your exercise or your,
it was
health.
Completely inescapable. It really was. Every thought about it, every action, because there were so many shoulds that I had to be doing to be prepared for the day, for the next week, for whatever's coming up. Like there was so much that it was all consuming. So think about that. I mean, my brain's constantly thinking of this, and I'm tired and sore all the time.
And underfed. Yeah. And underfed.
Very underfed. But again, when those things externally are so enforced, and again, being praised, I'm talking daily, Maggie, daily, other people saying, oh, look what you're doing. Your body's so great. Look what you've done. And it really fed into that insecurity, because body image issues are usually present, not always with people who struggle with orthorexia, but I actually believe all diet culture feeds off of those insecurities that we all have about our body. And this just took it to another level.
Yeah. So when people are listening to this and they're thinking like, oh gosh, that kind of sounds like me. That kind of sounds like my best friend. That kind of sounds like my sister or the lady I work with or whatever. What are the steps for help? Okay. So like, I just want to be clear, if this is something that somebody's identifying with, is this
I need to see an eating disorder specialist, like a multidisciplinary sort of care team, like call the hotline type thing? Or is this, I can work through this with some guidance with the coach, or like where does this fall on the how I get out of this spectrum?
Yeah, that's a really great question because I think that there is a lot available to you. I know many who actually find therapy is their best tool for working through this. Sometimes it's even therapists who bring it to light, again, if they're aware and they can. And I would say you always need to speak up for what's best for you, no matter what setting you're in, therapeutic or
Sure.
not. That if someone is not familiar, someone's not able to see what's going on with you, again, when it comes to these healthy behaviors, they're probably not the therapist for you, though I think there's many out there. There's other practitioners, again, who are registered dietitians. That's another route you can go. If, again, you are wanting a very high level of care, especially when it comes to your nutrients and all of that, I'd say there's a great level of training. Now, I work with women with orthorexia. And again, it's a lot of that's really a muddy area too, a lot of self-diagnosis because there's no formal
Diagnostic
diagnosis.
yeah,
Yeah, there's
exactly.
really nothing. So they're going off of what they're learning. Maybe they're hearing it here, even and feeling like you said, I identify with some of those things. I always, when I meet with someone who identifies with orthorexia, I really am very clear because I don't work with anyone with a diagnosed eating disorder. So
Right.
most of those women I'm working with have taken one step away. They can acknowledge what's been going on and say, all right, I'm done doing this. Maybe
Right.
they've sort of stopped tracking. Maybe they have even explored intuitive eating and now they're ready for support to continue on that journey. So I think there's all levels of care you can pursue here.
Okay, that's a good way to say it. And I think that if you're thinking it's a problem for you at whatever degree you think it may be a problem, it's probably worth investigating a support system for yourself, and that can look any number of ways. Is that
A-
fair to say it like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I of course in the work that I do, I encourage everyone, just in exploring your thoughts and having support. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with working with an intuitive eating counselor, with a practitioner, who's aligned with this work. That there's no shame in that. There's nothing to feel bad about saying, you know what, I'm done with dieting. I'm done with feeling, crappy about myself and tired all day and worn out. It's okay to ask for help and support.
Right. And that is really if I had to say one thing, it's the fact that your obsession with health and your behaviors and your pursuit of these activities is distracting to the rest of your life. I mean, if it
Mhm.
is impacting the rest of your life in a detrimental way, you're probably crossed the line between I'm just kind of like a dieter and a quote healthy eater versus I really need help. That's fair also to say that that's sort
Yeah.
of the piece. It's that um it just takes so much out of everything else. Like you said, your relationships, your ability to perform at your job, your family life, like all the things, right?
Yeah. And I would say, if I could add on to that, Maggie, if you ask yourself, okay, can I do without tracking? Can I do without checking labels? Can I do without a workout? Can I miss a workout? Can I let go of my Apple Watch trackers? Any of those things. And if that causes that kind of gut feeling of what would I do then? How would
Panicky.
I know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, again, a lot of the women I work with, that's where they are. Like, it's hard to let go, but they want to. And that's where they're seeking the extra support. But I would say that might be your first step, is to ask, so what if I didn't do these things today? Track, check, label, all of that.
Right. Okay. That's a good way to put it too. So I would love for you to give any last advice. We're going to kind of wrap up here, but this is such an important topic because I really think this has almost universal application in any I work primarily with kind of midlife women. I know you do as well. And when we have been drugged through diet culture for measured in decades, not even months or years, but truly decades, like this becomes an identity to some degree that, um, I would just like you to, I guess, offer some encouragement for somebody who maybe sees themselves in this reflection of this conversation and is like, there's no way because I'm 50 years old. I've been doing this since I was in the 6th grade. There's no way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tell them there is a way. They've heard it from me. I want them to hear it from you.
That's easy to do because I work with women who some have started dieting at the age of 8, and I have clients as old as 70. Maybe I should say as young as 70. That didn't sound right.
The difference between 8 and 70 is 62 long years of dieting.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of them have been able to walk away successfully from diet culture. And what they've done is embrace who they are and be empowered to make choices that are best for them. I think seeing yourself out of diet culture is a hard thing to imagine, but I would encourage you, just take a moment. Just take a moment to see yourself not within the context of restriction or dieting or removing things from your life, but what if you were adding them in? What things would you like to have more of in your life? And it's okay if the answer is vegetables. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
we're not
so
against
great.
vegetables.
No,
or we're
we
not
like
against,
vegetables.
the gym or anything like that.
It's okay. It's okay if it's more rest. It's okay if it's more movement. It's okay if it's more with people you love, more experiences. But diets, remember, they take away. So I want you just to take a moment, look at what can I add in? And that's honestly one of the first steps I did is what can I add in? I added in rest. And that alone helped me have clarity of mind to see what was really going on. So yes, maybe it's my daughter's, insight for all of us is to say, what are you doing? Like, are
Right.
you okay? And for us to step back and go, am I? What is she seeing? Maybe you do have that trusted friend who has mentioned something and you've just kind of blown it off because it's all been in the name of health. And you just take a step back and look at it from another perspective.
Oh, that's great. And really, it's about the quality of your life being higher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I think health is health is not necessarily that you have a certain biometrics or that you have or don't have certain diseases or whatever. I mean, it's really about truly your quality of life. And if you're able to participate in your life to the degree that you wish to.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and that's it. That really, that's a complete thought.
That really can be the end of the sentence. And I love that. I love it because it's empowering to you. You are an individual. You actually have not been having the say if you've been immersed in diet culture, and you have the right to have the say in what's best for your health. I really love that empowerment piece, that I went from feeling the pseudo control to feeling completely empowered.
Like real control, actual control.
Like actual control.
No more pseudo. Yeah.
No more choking kind of control, but freedom control. There's a big difference.
Oh, there's a huge difference. And you get to view nutrition and exercise and fitness and health and all this stuff with this open-mindedness and curiosity and learning about stuff, without feeling like shackled to these behaviors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more interesting. Like it just becomes more interesting, honestly. Like I think, and for me personally, it's specifically changed how I exercise, because I used to exercise and I wasn't like every day closing the apple rings, but I was like, my purpose of exercise was to burn calories and hopefully change my body. Mm-hmm. And now my purpose of exercise is like clear my head, get outside, check out what's going on in my neighborhood as I jog around the block, like just, be active with my kids. I want to be able to keep up with it could be the exact same exercise, but mm-hmm. the difference, like you said, the intention, mm-hmm. That's what makes it either healthy or not healthy.
Absolutely. I still work out. I go to the gym. I actually love lifting weights. It's something I enjoy, but my intent and my heart about it is completely different. I used to get noted, what I was lifting, how heavy I was doing, all these things. the best compliment I received, it was just about a month ago, was, "You look like you're always having fun at the gym."
Yeah.
To me, that was like,
There's so
this
few
has
people
happened.
having fun at the gym.
No
No wonder you stuck out.
I know. I'm probably the only person smiling and dancing at the gym nonstop. Like
Right.
that's for me, that was the difference maker right there. Like, you can actually have fun. You can enjoy food. You can enjoy life to its fullest and not be in the pursuit of constantly trying to manipulate the size of your body.
That's it. That's the punchline, folks. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm so glad you came on today. And I mean, we could talk for hours more, but I'll just have to have you back in the interest of time. We'll have to do a part 2. So I would like my audience to know where they can find you if they want to hear more from you, see what sort of services you offer. And you have a podcast of your own too.
I do. I hang out on Instagram, and thankfully I do, because that's how I met you, Maggie. They can find me Jennifer_health coach, the number 4 life. My website is the same. It's healthcoach, the number 4life.com. And I will put a plug. The number 4 is there because of those 4 daughters who I know I'm modeling everything for. I also have a podcast, Health, Life, and More for Women, which I love sharing very similar messages right there for women all the time about how to have just more confidence in who they are, become intuitive eaters, and live life to the fullest.
Well, thank you. I will put all those links in the notes so people can find you. And let me tell you what, 4 daughters, the whole diet culture aside, that is no small task there. So kudos to you, mama. I only have one, and some days I'm sweating it for sure.
Thanks, Maggie.
Yes. Well, thanks for coming on, Jen. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap. I knew you would love Jen, and please go to the show notes, find the links to her social media accounts, her webpage, and give her a follow, give her some support for the great work she's doing. And while you're over there on your podcast platform, go ahead and leave a rating or review. That really helps this message get into the ears of the people that need to hear it. And we will have another episode of the Eatfluencer podcast next Wednesday, as always. Until then, thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at Maggie Landis MD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at maggielandismd.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.